third day of review. So basically, I'm wearing a black shirt. Yeah, I just want to protest what has happened yesterday in COP28, and that's why I'm wearing this black shirt because yesterday, I think number of countries they talked about nuclear energy as an option to reduce carbon emissions. So, as a protest, as a basically to record my dissent over this decision, I'm wearing a black shirt today. I'll go into details. So basically, yesterday a lot of events happened, and I think it was a very large number of events. In fact, very overwhelming as well. But I was very surprised and I think and also pained because this nuclear energy has been projected yesterday, and I think it's very. I mean, it also indicates what we have been saying all along. COP28 and in the COP process, false solutions are being projected, basically to continue with the kind of structure of economy which has brought us to this situation where climate change is impacting on people lives and livelihoods. So you can see this photo where on the background you can see it says tripling nuclear energy by 2050. So, and you can see the world leaders standing there happily beaming that they have found a solution. In fact, they are saying this is the cleanest form of energy. And John Kerry says, I'll come to what John Kerry says because his words are very significant. American climate envoy, John Kerry. This, I just kept this empty because, this yesterday, 2nd December was supposed to be World Climate Action Summit, second day of Climate Action Summit. But I could not find any reporting on who spoke, how many spoke, and what did they speak. Something again, it was surprising because I could not find anyone reporting on that. And it also indicates that yesterday's events, have overwhelming this main event where world leaders come together and make statements. In fact, if you look at the previous COPs, these two leaders have been the highlight. Everyone was expecting what the presidents, prime ministers, heads of states are going to say. But yesterday, this became, tiny, and then other events became a major, news-making events. So I think we'll still see. I'll see tomorrow and day after if we can get some reports on which prime minister or which president said what. Now another major, I just picked what I thought was major trends. So there was a methane summit which was organized by US, China, and United Arab Emirates. These three together organized this, and they said that this summit is basically to accelerate action to cut methane and other non-carbon dioxide greenhouse gases. So you might know greenhouse gases, there are few more. Generally, we discuss only carbon dioxide and carbon emissions, we keep saying, but there are other gases which are much more lethal, so which includes methane. In fact, in COP27, US announced a global methane alliance, but I think some more activity has happened on that, and there is now a pledge, global methane pledge was announced, and I think more countries are joining. So yesterday, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Angola, Kenya, and Romania joined. And tomorrow, on December 4th, there will be a ministerial meeting. So there will be ministers, most probably environment ministers meeting to discuss this global methane pledge. And yesterday between COP27 and 28, some $1 billion finance has been mobilized. It is grant, grant has been mobilized to reduce methane. And even World Bank is entering, and they are going to launch a new fund which will help developing countries to reduce their methane emissions. So it could target Turkmenistan, smaller developing countries. But significantly, even though China is listed as part of the, this summit, but the pledge, was reported that they are not joined the pledge to cut their methane output, by 30% by 2030. So 150 countries have committed to reduce their methane output by 30% by 2030, by next 7 years. So even India has not joined in this methane pledge. That's what the news says. But I'm surprised that China was declared as part of the summit, but and some reports say they are not part of the pledge. So I don't know what is the is there a communication gap or misinterpreted, whatever. We'll just see again next day, few days. So this methane, again, if you look at the data coming from International Energy Agency, which was put together by Reuters, they show, in each of the continents, what are the sources of methane gas. So in Asia Pacific, here it shows agriculture is the major source of methane. So paddy, paddy areas, paddy production regions, and then cows, number of livestock, they add up to this methane production in Asia Pacific. Of course, in Europe, it could be pigs, because a lot of pigs are grown there. Pork industry is very big, and even cows are there. So you can see Europe also shows some substantial agriculture source of methane. Energy is, of course, it includes oil, gas, and even that coal mining areas and other areas. And waste is another source where methane is generated. So, like in Hyderabad, we have Jawahar Nagar dump yard, and in Delhi, we have a huge dump yard, and even Bombay. So all these are methane sources, and these have been listed as major sources. Now, within energy sector, you can see oil and gas. Oil, while producing oil or fracking, the entire process of oil extraction and usage, methane is continuously emitted, and you can see again continent-wise how much is released. So here you can see within oil and gas, Asia Pacific is very low, but in agriculture, Asia Pacific is the highest. So again here Middle East, so which includes UAE, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and all those other oil countries. Their methane emissions are very high from oil sources. Then Central and South America is also there. No, this is increasing. That's what this no, graph shows us that between 2000 and 2021, over a period of 22 years, methane emissions are increasing in various phases of fossil fuel production, usage, and consumption. So we can see coal. I think as the coal mining is increasing, coal has become a major source of methane gas as well. So, and then followed by natural gas. So, US, I think, is again a major source of methane from natural gas. And Indonesia, India are sources of coal linked methane gas. And then there is this fossil fuel debate, which is underlying the COP, activities, COP28. If you see in the last 2 days, COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, he was trying to push down the importance of fossil fuel phase out demand. So there has been a demand continuously for agreement or commitments on fossil fuel phase out, which includes oil, gas, and coal. But COP28 is trying to push it down, saying we need to negotiate, we need to have a plan of reduction. But then yesterday, Secretary General of UN, Antonio Guterres, he he emphasized, in fact, in the presence of COP28 president, he said we cannot, talk about climate action while we have a fire hose of fossil fuels. So he was emphasizing on fossil fuel as a focus point for COP28 action. So this underlying tension within COP28, within UN bodies, and then the UAE, which is organizing this COP28, is still there. So we have only passed now 3 days. So we need to see next 10 days how this tension is going to play out. But then yesterday, as Sultan Al Jaber, he announced about 1 week back that he will bring oil companies to the negotiating table. And now, yesterday, they made a pledge to reach near zero of methane emissions. So they are not talking of reduction in oil production or oil and gas mining. So now, so all the major companies have joined. Saudi Aramco, I think Saudi Aramco has shares. So Reliance India has shares in Saudi Aramco. So Brazil's Petrobras, and Shell is there, Total Energy, BP. So all these companies yesterday they pledged that they will reduce methane emission. But on the other hand, there is a demand by at least 10 countries and 2000 plus civil society organization. They are demanding for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So they don't want a fossil fuel proliferation. They want a reduction. So that treaty, support for that demand for fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty is increasing every day. But these 10 countries are small countries, Tuvalu, all these Angola, kind of very small countries. So we need to see if major countries are going to join this call. There have been number of side events, again, as yesterday and day before. So I could just see if some 14 side events. There are many more. And similarly, yesterday, Business and Philanthropy Climate Forum, they organized meetings on December 1st and December 2nd as well. So, so for this first 3 days, the green zone day pass was only for invitees, so it was not open. So green zone usually they said it is open, but for the first 3 days, so 30th November, for December 1st and December 2nd, it was only for invitees. So that means whatever we have been reporting or looking at yesterday, day before, and the other day, they are all organized, planned, and invited people only. It's not a common, open for everyone kind of events, which is again significant. I'm just trying to underline that for your understanding. There have been a number of announcements yesterday. There was a comment also about that. I'll come to that later. So this announcement, one of them is significant is 118 countries have agreed to triple global renewable energy capacity. And this 118 countries list I just saw before coming online. India is not there on the list. So there are, of course, out of 197 member countries, 118 countries have signed, and another, 70 or odd countries are yet to sign. But I think most of the, energy is used by these unsigned countries like India or US or European Union. So, but then there is some pressure coming from tripling the renewable energy capacity. We need to see by again in the next 10 days who is going to join this. Then there was this US announcing that they are joining Powering Past Coal Alliance. So this alliance is basically they want to phase out coal, and US has joined that. So this is again this puts India versus the US or Indonesia, India versus US, because US, India and Indonesia and other coal countries, they are resisting coal phase out. I'll come to that again when we are discussing nuclear energy. Then US announced $50 million additional funds to adapt crops and invest in fertile and healthy soils. So on December 5th, it's a World Soil Day, and now there is a lot of noise, calls for demand for on soil conservation, creating healthy soils and protecting soil from erosion. There are a number of demands on that. So US has announced that. We don't know what they are going to invest that on, and in particular. Now there was this nuclear energy summit announced yesterday again. So next year in March 2024, first ever, in the world in the last 100 years, there was never any nuclear energy summit. But now they are going to have that summit in March 2024. So it will bring together at least 20 to 30 countries. And as we mentioned, 50 companies, they have signed a decarbonization charter. I have a copy of that charter, but I think They are just talking of methane emission reduction, and it has been criticized by civil society groups. I think some 150 civil society groups released a letter saying that this is a smoke screen to actual, reduction in fossil fuel usage. Now, Colombia, which is again a major fossil fuel producer, they have signed another alliance calling for fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, which I mentioned in the previous slide. So I think this is the big first major fossil fuel producer which has joined this call for fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. So we need to see if other oil producers like Russia, OPEC, and all these other countries are going to join this on. So some small, information is UAE has announced, their intent to ratify Kigali amendment to Montreal Protocol. So there is a Montreal Protocol there, which has been running parallel to COP convention to tackle hydrofluorocarbons (HFCs). So there is a amendment which has been pending, and not many countries have signed on it. So this Kigali amendment targets these hydrofluorocarbons, and there is a multilateral fund which helps the countries to transition from HFCs to non-HFC kind of technologies. So, like what we see in our refrigerator, our refrigerators use this hydrofluorocarbons, but I think CFCs have been phased out, but even HFCs need to be phased out. Then interestingly, I found yesterday there was a global cooling pledge. So this cooling pledge targets global cooling related emissions. So cooling related is basically, industries have a lot of cooling units, and of course in at homes also cooling units are there. So the for cooling, while cooling, there are emissions. So this pledge is targeting those emissions, and they want to reduce those cooling related emissions. Then nuclear energy, as I mentioned, 20 countries have joined call for tripling of nuclear energy. India is not there in this, but but I'll tell you an interesting point later. So as I mentioned, there are comments. There was this one Mr. Muhammad Adaw. He said the flurry of announcements coming out of COP28 are largely to be welcome. It's good to see countries and companies taking voluntary action to cut emissions, to boost and deliver climate finance. But we need to remember COP28 is not a trade show and a press conference. It's an international negotiation, and that is still the most important part. So someone who is there sitting and throughout the day seeing some 50 announcements, number of alliances, press conferences, all this, is called verbose, which I think Greta Thunberg, derided in Glasgow summit. But what is the actual negotiation? I think that's what we are all interested. But actual negotiation is underreported. And then you see this flamboyant announcements which are coming out. Now you can see Sadhguru, our Indian guru is there. Jaggi was there. He was there in the COP28, and he is saying soil is the ultimate unifier, stresses of revitalization policies. And Prime Minister himself also spoke in different events yesterday also. So he said for the global good, it is important that the rights of everyone are protected and everyone has equal participation. I thought this is significant coming from Indian Prime Minister because civil society has for long been saying their slogan was nothing about us without us. So I think the Prime Minister Modi seems to have endorsed this, but I hope this will be replicated within India. So I hope government of India will walk the talk, so to say. And Modi gave a call for developed countries to reduce their carbon footprint at the earliest possible. So this is the photo where Jaggi was there, Sadhguru. So that's called Faith Pavilion. So I think there is a Faith Pavilion today also. We'll come to that. But then there is another comment, they say they are linking, India has linked G20 with COP28. Prime Minister Modi himself extensively referred to the work done by G20 in the last 6, 7, 8 months in India and their linkage with the climate change negotiation. But someone is saying disinformation leading the narrative at COP28 is the biggest threat to climate progress and negotiation. So G20 commitments also are on a sliding scale of ambition. That means ambition is reducing. Ambiguous language is being used. Like yesterday we said, language is very ambiguous. Targets are not there. Specificity is very less. So I think this is becoming a very big challenge for people who are trying to understand the COP negotiations. I'm rushing because a lot more needs to be discussed today. Now there was again yesterday event of climate health, linking climate change impacts with health. So World Health Organization, along with the UAE, they organized this event yesterday. So they gave a call. There was a COP28 UAE declaration on climate and health. So which wants to target climate action to improve the health and basically to accelerate development of climate resilient, sustainable and equitable health systems. So what it means, again, we have to go into detail, but already 123 countries have endorsed. And today, I think today or tomorrow, there is going to be a ministerial of health ministers. So this is the first time in the COP history, 28 years of history, that health ministers are attending the COP and they're going to discuss what to do when the climate action is linked with the health. So, I'm concerned here because you can see a lot of private players entering. Wellcome Trust, Rockefeller Foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Bayer Foundation. Bayer is a pesticide and a seed company, and their foundation is also there. There are other foundations are part of this, and importantly, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So, like World Health Organization, now they are trying to negotiate amendments to international health regulations. They are trying to bring a new pandemic treaty, outside the COP framework, Climate Convention COP. But here now they are linking and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is the major source of funding for World Health Organization. 85% of the funds for WHO comes from this foundation. And this foundation, again, yesterday, they have announced funds for climate and health. And you can see why what they are going to do in the 4 years, they are going to support efforts to support climate focused malaria efforts to better understand, detect, and respond to changing vector habitat and endemicity ranges, to develop new tools and strategies to respond to climate related changes and disruptions in the malaria response. So they are linking this with malaria. And of course, they're talking of transdisciplinary approaches to better adapt to mitigate and reverse combined deleterious effects of climate change on health and agriculture. So, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is linking climate change, health, and agriculture with their agenda. I think we have a lot to say on that because I've been monitoring what is happening with their projects. They promote number of organizations, but basically, as we discussed yesterday, the agriculture component where transgenic crops, seeds, all these are also promoted. Basically, industrial agriculture. So industrial agriculture, and then the biotech industry and health. All these are now coming together as part of this initiative where WHO is at the forefront. So this again I left it because I could not find time to find new areas of concern. Now there are a number of negotiation tracks which did not progress much. So they are still grappling with the basics of discussions on several texts. Now I'll just refer to this national adaptation plan. So each country, they are expected to submit plans, adaptation plans. So this discussion on national adaptation plans happened, and they are looking at how to link financial, technical, and capacity building support, and then participatory approach to engage local stakeholders and integrate indigenous and local knowledge. So this has been what we have been saying as part of our efforts here, Council for Green Revolution and Center for Environment, Earth Leadership and Sustainability. So we are saying local stakeholders need to be engaged about plans, about all the activities, actions which are linked with climate negotiations. So there is a standing committee on finance. They are also looking at a pathway towards a low greenhouse gas emission. And this again, finance, as I mentioned yesterday, they are still looking at redefining or defining climate finance, how the funds will come, who will get how much. So all this is still in a flux situation. Before COP28, global stock take has been projected as one of the major subjects and challenges for COP28. But I know that first global stock take meetings are happening, and again, not much to be reported there what is happening, but there are two important things I thought which will bring here is the maladaptation is a concept which is being pushed. Basically, it is about the course taken in adaptation. So this has been brought by in developed countries. They are saying if there is maladaptation, that means if they don't go the path which the developed countries want to go, then there may not be any finance there. So this is as good as, those countries defining what kind of approach developing countries have to take. So a number of countries, objected to this inclusion, and they see this as a barrier to finance. So we need to see whether this maladaptation clause is going to survive in the next 10 days. And of course, there have been calls for inclusion on human rights, indigenous rights, gender, and youth from different countries. And importantly, locally led adaptation, national and transnational level action, and inclusive adaptation process. This is what civil society has been asking about. A locally led adaptation is very, very important, and I hope this negotiation track is going to come up with something tangible on that. Now, as I mentioned, number of organizations are monitoring what is happening at the negotiations. So this is by Carbon Brief. So now you can see clearly they are tracking these topics on the extreme left with the draft negotiation text on the extreme right. Anyone can download and go through that, but it looks sometimes Greek and Latin because it's very technical, legalese. So unless you have this 4, 5, or 10 years of monitoring experience, we may not understand everything. Unless, of course, people like Carbon Brief, I'm an organization, they help in interpreting what is happening for us. So this is what the note says: a disagreement over updating mandate of response measures is there. So these are all they are giving us a very fine information. I think we can get a lot of information from this. So not only Carbon Brief, there are International Institute for Sustainable Development. They are also monitoring the negotiations. So I keep picking up whatever they have been saying, and there are other organizations also. So my information comes from such monitoring organizations. Now, significantly, as I'm wearing a black shirt, because yesterday 20 countries said they are supporting, they are going to triple nuclear energy. Parallelly, yesterday in Gujarat, there was this conference, Energy Transition in India, Road Travel and Opportunities Ahead in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. So our Power Minister for Power, so he spoke there, and as reported by one of the newspapers, what he says is, we think new renewable energy is also a part of the solution, but he says because there is no storage capacity. So solar energy is there in India, but you need to increase the storage capacity, and that storage capacity is increasing the cost of the renewable energy per unit cost. So he says it will come to at least 14 rupees per unit, and it is not feasible. So because of that, and also uh, because of this cost, because of the inherent issues involved, we continue to use coal, is what he's saying. So we burn coal, but then he tried to ameliorate his statement by saying, but our emissions are controlled due to advanced mechanisms. So thermal plants, he says they are the flue gases or whatever emissions are coming out of that, they are being controlled, is what he's saying. And he says compares with other countries and says our consumption is anyway lower than other countries. So basically, it might be meaning China, Europe, and US, developed countries. So he says in this scenario, where we cannot reduce coal and we cannot immediately use the renewable energy. He says we need to go for nuclear energy. So I am saying say this is significant because yesterday in COP28 there was this nuclear energy summit, and then parallelly India was not there in the COP28 summit, but here Indian power minister is saying similar to what that 20 countries have said. He says we are going to increase our nuclear energy capacity from 7,000 to 15,000 megawatts. And I think this being projected, nuclear energy is the most wasteful uh, uh, source of energy. And we have been, working against that stream of energy for the past 30, 35 years. All over the world, scientists and economists, and many people have discarded nuclear energy. But here, from COP28, nuclear energy is now being pushed as a major clean energy source. I think that's a cause of concern. So studies and reports, we have again, because I have this all this agenda, I did not pick up anything. Now there have been long queues yesterday. As I mentioned, this COP28 has attracted more people than COP26 and 27. So they are saying more than 1 lakh people are registered, and there are long queues, and several rooms are beyond capacity. So people who are chairing the sessions, they have asked observers and even some party delegates to reduce, because some countries they bring not just one, they could be 10 or 15 people in some rooms. They are asking them to reduce the number of delegates per country. But on the other hand, there are several countries who do not have any representative uh, in some of the rooms, negotiating rooms. So this again, there is a large gap. There is no equity in terms of numbers for delegates within the countries. So US, as I always, they have a lot of delegates sitting at various places. Now, this is a daily program. So today's, every day you'll have a meeting of conference of parties. That is 197 countries. Then you have conference of parties serving as meeting of the parties to Kyoto Protocol. So this is mostly about the clauses or actions which have been agreed under Kyoto Protocol. So they call it CMP. So whenever you see CMP, you can look at Kyoto Protocol. Then CMA means it is about Paris Agreement. Then there are subsidiary bodies for scientific and technology advice. So these are mostly scientists and all those related with research and work on that. There is subsidiary body for implementation, SBI, and there are a number of subsidiary bodies also. So every day there will be special meetings and events like this pledge meetings, declaration meetings. Then there are action events, capacity building events, and there are side events, pavilion events like a faith pavilion, and there are closed meetings. So this is what I thought I'll bring it to you notice. So as part of this closed meetings today on December 3rd, we have these meetings of observer organization. So all these observers are civil society organization. So you can see today there is a meeting of faith-based organization. So it could be Jaggi Vasudev or any people of such kind they are meeting there. Then we have parliamentarians. So I don't have information if any Indian parliament a member is there, but parliament members are also meeting there. Then you have bingos, business and industrial organizations, environmental non-governmental organizations, then farmers and agricultural non-governmental organizations, indigenous people, Adivasi people organizations. Then you have local governments and municipal authorities, mostly mayors, those people are also there. Then you have research and independent non-governmental organizations. So this could be think tanks, all these people who produce reports, research, all those people are there. Then you have trade union non-governmental organizations. So these are all trade union related, looking for labor rights, promoting them. Then you have women and gender, constituency organization. Youth organizations are also there. Then disability caucus, again disability organizations are there. So all these different kind of civil society is there. And among the list of 615 organizations accepted, approved for participating in COP28, you can find a different range of civil society. So we'll discuss about more about this civil society organizations maybe on a rest day because we'll have more time to discuss. This is again the data which UNFCCC shows. So 195 states have been represented in COP28 so far. And then registered participants are 97,372. Media organizations are 1,293. Almost 1,300 media organizations are there. Even from India, there are a number of media organizations. But I think Hindu is represented, Down to Earth is represented. So maybe many more are there. So this year, I see, unlike COP27 and 26, this year I see more reporting on a day-to-day basis. But then, for whatever reasons, their reporting is sometimes a syndicated feed. That means someone generates there and they just publish that. And the other thing is some correspondent sitting there and writing. But we still need to our work. What we are doing here is linking our issues with what is happening with the COP28 negotiations. Is still our work, which is being done from here. So I'll stop here and I'll now speak in Telugu for our Telugu audience. So again, for English, tomorrow we are going to discuss more issues, whatever on events which are happening today on December 3rd. So see you, all the people who are listening to English. నిన్న COP28లో 2nd December నాడు జరిగిన సమావేశం గురించి మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నాము. నిన్న చాలా ప్రధానంగా ఈ అణు శక్తి, అణు విద్యుత్ శక్తి మనకు ఇదొక పరిష్కారంగా ప్రొజెక్షన్ అంటే నిన్న ఒక 20 దేశాలు సమావేశం పెట్టి ప్రకటించారు. ఇది చాలా దురదృష్టకరం. ఎందుకంటే అణు విద్యుత్ వలన అనేక సమస్యలు వస్తాయని ఏనాటి నుంచో గుర్తించారు. కానీ మనము ఒక ప్రమాదం నుంచి ఇంకో ప్రమాదం వైపు వెళ్ళే పరిస్థితి మనకి ఈ ప్రకటన ద్వారా వస్తున్నది. అయితే అక్కడ 20 దేశాలు ప్రకటిస్తే ఇక్కడ మన భారతదేశంలో మన శక్తికి సంబంధించిన మంత్రి ఆయన ఇక్కడ వేరే ఒక మీటింగ్ లో మాట్లాడుతూ భారతదేశం కూడా తాను ప్యారిస్ అగ్రిమెంట్లో ఏవైతే కమిట్మెంట్స్ ఇచ్చిందో అది తగ్గించడానికి అణుశక్తి విద్యుత్ని ఉపయోగించుకుంటుందని చెప్పడం జరిగింది. అంటే భారతదేశం కూడా అణు విద్యుత్ని పెంచే ప్రణాళికలో ఉన్నట్టు స్పష్టంగా కనపడుతుంది. ఇక రెండవది, నిన్న చాలా ప్రకటనలు వచ్చాయి. అంటే అనేక దేశాలు కూటములు ఏర్పడి దీని మీద దాని మీద ప్రకటనలు గుప్పించినాయి. అసలు ఈ ప్రకటనలు ఎందుకు చేస్తున్నారు, అక్కడ ఎందుకు సమావేశం అవుతున్నారు అనేది ఒక ప్రశ్న అయితే, ఇవన్నీ కలిపి అసలు అక్కడ చర్చలు దేని మీద జరుగుతున్నాయనే ప్రశ్న కూడా మన ముందు ఉన్నది. అది చర్చలేమో వివిధ రూమ్లలో వివిధ గదులలో జరుగుతుంటుంది. కానీ మనం మాట్లాడే కొన్ని విషయాలేమో ఈ బయట ఇవన్నీ ఆ చర్చలను ప్రభావితం చేసే ఇవన్నీ ఈవెంట్స్గా మనం చూడాలి. ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు మీథేన్ గురించి నిన్న అమెరికా తర్వాత 2-3 దేశాలు కలిపి ఒక ప్రకటన చేశాయి. అందులో దాదాపు ఇంకొక 30-40 దేశాలు అందులోకి వచ్చినట్టు మనం చూసాం అది. సో మీథేన్ అనేది చాలా ప్రమాదకరమైన గ్రీన్ హౌస్ గ్యాస్. అంటే మనం కార్బన్ డైఆక్సైడ్ మాట్లాడుకుంటాం, కానీ కార్బన్ డైఆక్సైడ్ కంటే ఎక్కువ మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ కూడా. అయితే ఈ మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ వ్యవసాయం నుంచి రావచ్చు, తర్వాత ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను భూమిలోంచి తీసేటప్పుడు, దాన్ని ప్రాసెసింగ్ చేసేటప్పుడు, రవాణా చేసేటప్పుడు ఎక్కడైనా కూడా దాని నుంచి మిథేన్ వస్తుంది అనేది మనకు చెప్తున్నారు. అంటే ఈ మొత్తం ప్రాసెస్ ఆయిల్ అండ్ గ్యాస్ నుంచి కూడా మనకు మిథేన్ ఉత్పత్తి జరుగుతుంది. అట్లాగే వేస్ట్ నుంచి, చెత్త మనం పడేస్తాము, చెత్త కుప్పలు ఉంటాయి, ఆ చెత్త కుప్పల నుంచి మిథేన్ వస్తుంది, లేదా మన మురికి నీటి నుంచి కూడా మిథేన్ వస్తుంది. సో ఇవన్నీ కంటే మన ఇప్పుడు ఆసియా ఖండంలో ఎక్కువ శాతం వ్యవసాయం నుంచి వస్తుందని నివేదికలు చెప్తున్నాయి. కానీ వేరే ఇతర దేశాలు, అభివృద్ధి చెందిన దేశాల్లో కూడా, ఇప్పుడు యూరోప్లో కూడా వ్యవసాయ పరిశ్రమ, ఎందుకంటే పారిశ్రామిక వ్యవసాయం నుంచి మిథేన్ ఉత్పత్తి చాలా ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుంది. మన దగ్గర కూడా ఉందని ఎప్పటి నుంచో అమెరికా ఆరోపిస్తుంది. ఏది మన దగ్గర ఈ పశు సంపద ఎక్కువ ఉండింది, ఆ పశు సంపద వల్ల మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ వస్తుంది. అట్లాగే మనము వరి ఉత్పత్తి చేస్తాం కాబట్టి మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ ఈ వరి పొలాల నుంచి కూడా వస్తుంది అనేది వాళ్ళు చెప్తున్న మాట. సో అయితే ఇప్పుడు ఈ మిథేన్ గ్యాస్ని తగ్గించడానికి ఒక ప్రయత్నం మొదలు పెట్టారు. దీన్ని కొందరు ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నారు, కానీ కొందరు ఏంటంటే అసలు విషయము మీరు శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను ఉపయోగించడం తగ్గించడానికి మీరు ఇక్కడ ఒక కమిట్మెంట్ లేదా మీరు ఒక ప్రకటన చేయాల్సి వస్తుందని, దాని నుంచి దృష్టి మార్చడానికి ఇవన్నీ చేస్తున్నారు అనేది ఒక ఆరోపణ కూడా ఉన్నది మనకి. అంటే ఇది తక్కువనా అది ఎక్కువనా ప్రయారిటైజేషన్ చూస్తే, అసలు మీరు శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించాలి, ఉపయోగం తగ్గించాలన్న ప్రకటన వస్తే మీథేన్ గ్యాస్ కూడా ఇట్లాంటివన్నీ తగ్గే అవకాశం ఉంటుంది అనేది మనకు ఐపీసీసీ రిపోర్ట్ నుంచి కూడా వస్తుంది. సో ఈ అంటే ఒక అంశం నుంచి దృష్టి మరల్చడానికి ఇంకోటి చేస్తున్నారు అనే ఏదైతే ఉందో ఆరోపణ, అది మనకు కొన్ని సందర్భాల్లో వాస్తవంగా కనపడుతుంది. ఎందుకంటే COP28లో జరుగుతున్న పరిణామాలు చూస్తుంటే ఇక ఇంకా అనేక ప్రకటనలు కూడా వచ్చాయి. ఆ ప్రకటనలన్నీ కూడా కార్యరూపం దాల్చుతాయా అనేది కూడా మన ముందు ఉన్న పెద్ద ప్రశ్న. ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు ప్రధానంగా COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఆయన ఒక ఆయిల్ కంపెనీకి అధిపతి అని మనం మాట్లాడుతున్నాం. అదే మనకు అంత ఐక్యరాజ్య సమితి సెక్రటరీ జనరల్ ఆయన చెప్తున్న దానికి ఈ COP28 అధ్యక్షుడు చెప్తున్న దాని మధ్య చాలా వైరుధ్యం ఉంది, చాలా గ్యాప్ ఉంది. యుఎన్ సెక్రటరీ జనరల్ ఏమో మనం శిలాజ ఇంధనాల గురించి దాని కొనసాగింపులో ఉంటే మనం ఏ పని చేసినా అర్ధరహితము నిరర్థకం అని ఆయన నిన్న మాట్లాడారు. కానీ COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఏమో కాదు, అది కూడా కాదు, ఇంకా మనం అనేక విషయాలు మాట్లాడుకోవాలనే విధంగా ఆయన మాట్లాడుతుంది. సో ఈ అంటే UNFCCC యుఎన్ ఫ్రేమ్వర్క్ కన్వెన్షన్ ఆన్ క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ ఈ ఈ కాప్ ని నిర్వహిస్తుంది ప్రతిసారి. కాకపోతే స్థానిక దేశము, స్థానిక ప్రభుత్వం కూడా బాధ్యత తీసుకుంటుంది. సో ఈ రెండు టీంల మధ్య ఈ విషయంగా ఉన్న ఏదైతే టెన్షన్ వైరుధ్యం ఉందో ఇది 13 రోజులలో ఎటు దారితీస్తుంది అనేది మన ముందున్న ఒక ప్రశ్న. చూద్దాం ఈ 10 రోజుల్లో ఏం జరుగుతుందని. ఇది కాక మనకు ఇప్పుడు నిన్న జరిగిన సమావేశాల్లో ఏదైతే చర్చలు జరిగినాయో చాలా రూమ్లలో చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి, కానీ అన్ని కూడా ప్రాథమిక స్థాయిలోనే ఉన్నాయి. ఇప్పుడు మన COP28 మొదలయ్యే ముందు గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ అనే అంశము, అంటే ప్యారిస్ అగ్రిమెంట్ లో పెట్టిన ఒక క్లాజ్ ఏంటంటే ప్యారిస్ అగ్రిమెంట్ లో ఒప్పందంలో ప్రతి దేశము తమ ఉద్గారాలను తగ్గించుకోవడానికి వాళ్ళు కొన్ని వాగ్దానం చేశారు. ఆ వాగ్దానాలు ఏ మేరకు అమలైనాయి అనేది చూడడమే గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్. అది ప్రతి 5 సంవత్సరాలకు చేయాలని ఆ ఒప్పందంలోనే ఉంది. కానీ ఇప్పటికే ఇది మొట్టమొదటి గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్. అంటే ఎక్కడ ఉన్నాము, మనం ఎంతవరకు సాధించాము, ఇవన్నీ అంచనా వేయడానికి అది ఉంది. అది చాలా ముఖ్యమైన ఈ ఎజెండా అంశం అని మనకు నిపుణులు చెప్తున్నారు COP28లో. కానీ నిన్న మొన్న ఈ గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ మీద ఏవైతే చర్చలు లోపల జరుగుతున్నాయో వాళ్ళు ఇంకా ప్రాథమిక స్థాయిలోనే ఉన్నట్టు మనకు కనపడుతుంది. అంటే వాళ్ళు జనరల్గా ఒక టెక్స్ట్ తయారు చేస్తారు, అంటే 4-5 పేజీలు ఎవరో ప్రతిపాదిస్తారు. ఈ ప్రతిపాదనల మీద చర్చ జరుగుతుంది. అసలు ఇదే ప్రతిపాదన ఉండాలన్నా ఇంకేమన్నా ఉండాలన్నా ఇవే నడుస్తున్నాయి ఇప్పుడు. అయితే ఈ అనేక విషయాలు ఇప్పుడు ఫైనాన్స్ కానీ, గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ కానీ, అడాప్టేషన్, ఇవన్నీ అంశాలలో చర్చలు నిన్న జరిగిన దాంట్లో నాకు ముఖ్యమైన అనిపించింది ఏంటంటే కొన్ని చోట్ల ఈ స్థానికుల యొక్క హక్కుల గురించి, హ్యూమన్ రైట్స్ గురించి ప్రస్తావన ఉండాలనేది ఒకటైతే, స్థానికుల జ్ఞానము, అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం జీవనోపాధులు ఎక్కడైతే జరుగుతున్నది వ్యవసాయం కావచ్చు, ఇంకా ఇతర అనేక రకాల జీవనోపాధులు, వాటి వెనకాలన్న జ్ఞానాన్ని ఉపయోగించుకొని ఈ వాతావరణ మార్పుల వల్ల జరిగే వైపరీత్యాలు కానీ ప్రమాదాల నుంచి బయటపడవచ్చు, దాన్ని గుర్తించాలని కొన్ని చర్చల్లో కొందరు ఆ అంశము పెట్టాలని కూడా మాట్లాడడం జరిగింది. అది ఎంతవరకు మళ్ళీ అందులో పొందుపరుస్తారనేది మనం చూడాలి. దాంతోపాటు ఆదివాసీలు, ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు అడవిని పెంచాలి, జీవ వైవిధ్యం పెంచాలంటే ఎవరో ఫారెస్ట్ చదివిన వాళ్ళు కాదు, ఆదివాసీలు. ఎందుకంటే వాళ్ళ తరతరాల నుంచి వాళ్ళకు వస్తున్న జ్ఞానం కానీ, వాళ్ళ జీవన శైలి కానీ, ఇవన్నీ అడవిని పెంచే విధంగా ఉంటాయి. కాబట్టి వాళ్ళ సాంప్రదాయాలు కానీ, వాళ్ళ విధానాలు కానీ, అవన్నిటినీ కూడా మనం ఈ అడాప్టేషన్లో, మిటిగేషన్లో తీసుకోవాలనేది కొందరు ఆ చర్చల్లో భాగంగా చెప్తున్నారు. మరి అది ఏ మేరకు అందులో పెడతారు, దాన్ని చూస్తారు అనేది మనం చూడాలి. చివరిగా నిన్న ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ మొట్టమొదటిసారి క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ ఈ చర్చల్లో భాగంగా మనకు ఆరోగ్యం గురించి ప్రస్తావన తీసుకొచ్చారు. ఆరోగ్యం మీద నిన్న ఒక డిక్లరేషన్ కూడా ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది. అంటే ఈ క్లైమేట్ చేంజ్ వలన మన అన్ని రకాల ఉత్పత్తులు దెబ్బతిన్నాయి. వాటి వలన మన ఆరోగ్యం కూడా దెబ్బతింటుంది. కాబట్టి మనం ఆరోగ్యాన్ని మనుషుల ఆరోగ్యాన్ని ఎట్లా కాపాడుకోవాలనే దాని మీద కూడా మనం చర్చించాలని వాళ్ళు ఈ డిక్లరేషన్ తీసుకురావడం జరిగింది. కాకపోతే ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థ ఇక్కడ కాపు కాకుండా బయట 2 అంతర్జాతీయ ఒప్పందాలు తయారు చేస్తున్నారు. వాటి మీద మేము ఎప్పటినుంచో గమనిస్తా ఉన్నాము. వీటిని అనుసంధానం చేసే ప్రక్రియ కూడా నిన్న COP28లో మొదలైనట్టు మనకు కనపడుతుంది. నా దృష్టిలో ఇది చాలా ప్రమాదకరమైన పరిణామం. ఎందుకంటే దీని ద్వారా ఇప్పటికే ఫార్మా రంగంలో, వ్యవసాయ రంగంలో, తర్వాత బయోటెక్ రంగంలో, డిజిటల్ రంగంలో ఉన్న పెద్ద పెద్ద కంపెనీలు, ఈ ఫౌండేషన్స్ వీళ్ళందరూ ప్రపంచ ఆరోగ్య సంస్థతోటి కలిసి ఇక్కడికి వచ్చి వాళ్ళ యొక్క ఎజెండాను, వాళ్ళ యొక్క వ్యాపారాలను, వాళ్ళ యొక్క టెక్నాలజీలను, వాళ్ళ ఆలోచనలను, వాళ్ళ పరిష్కారాలను ముందుకి తీసుకెళ్లే ప్రయత్నము దీని ద్వారా చేస్తున్నట్టు కనపడుతుంది. ఈరోజు రేపు ఈ వైద్య ఆరోగ్య శాఖ మంత్రులు అక్కడ మొట్టమొదటిసారి COPలో సమావేశం జరపబోతున్నారు. హెల్త్ మినిస్టర్స్ మీటింగ్ ఉంది. అది బహుశా రేపు ఉండొచ్చు. సో వాళ్ళు ఏం మాట్లాడతారో మరి దాని ద్వారా ఏ విధమైన మార్పు ఈ చర్చల్లో తీసుకొస్తారనేది అది కూడా మనము గమనించి మాట్లాడుకుందాం. సో ఈరోజు అంటే నిన్న జరిగిన సమావేశాల సారాంశం ఇది.